Hello, everyone. Apparently, we have the giggles real quick. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another virtual event with Mysterious Galaxy. Tonight, we have three wonderful authors here for you. Of course, joining us for the debut launch of Just Your Local Bisexual Disaster, which, by the way, I have to say, when we were all young, weren't we all kind of disastrous, bisexual or not? Yes. I was a hot mess for sure.
I'm still a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, me too, but you gotta, fake it till you make it, right?
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we have Andrea Mosqueda, a Chicana writer born and raised in Texas, Rio Grande Valley. She currently lives in Brooklyn with her partner and works in publishing industry as an assistant editor. Joining us in conversation, first, we have RACQUEL MARIE, who primarily writes YA contemporaries starring queer Latin characters like herself. She's the author of the OPHELIA After All, and You Don't Have a Shot. And also in conversation, we have Rachel Roasek. When not coming up with fictional worlds, she works as both a voice actor and stage technician. I can't talk tonight. Hello.
Hello.
For everyone who's joining us tonight, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't yet purchased your own copy of Just Your Local Bisexual Disaster or any one of the other authors' books, if you click the link below, that'll take you to our website where you can purchase them for in-store pickup or mail, because we do mail pretty much around the world. And with Just Your Local Bisexual Disaster, you will get a signed book plate from I forgot my train of thought. A signed book plate. It is. I need more coffee.
We talked about this. It's fine.
Yes. And if you haven't yet been to a virtual event with Mysterious Galaxy, there's also a button below that says Ask a Question. If you hit that, you can submit any questions you want to ask, which will be hopefully answered later in the program, depending on how many questions we get. I'm going to go ahead and disappear for now and leave it to these three wonderful authors to go ahead and discuss. But I will see you all later in the program. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, great. I think we're alone now.
Yes.
Doesn't seem to be. No.
Okay, so hi, in case you missed that entire first part, I'm Andrea Mosqueda. I'm the author of Just Your Local Bisexual Disaster. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I wrote a YA contemporary rom-com about a bisexual Chicana growing up in the Rio Grande Valley trying to find a date for her sister's 15th. And so that's who I am. Rachel, Raquel, who you be?
Rachel, you go.
Oh, great. I'm Rachel Roasek. I use any pronouns. And I wrote Love Somebody, which is a retelling of Cyrano de Bergerac about three teenagers, Christian, Roz, and Sam. And when Christian sees Roz and kind of falls for her on sight, he's too socially awkward to try and make it work. So he has to enlist his friend to pretend to be him over text to try and win her over.
And both of those books are very, very good. And I'm Raquel Marie. I use she, her, hers. I'm the author of OPHELIA After All, which is a YA contemporary coming out of age story about a queer Latina questioning her sexuality in the weeks leading up to her senior prom. It's got a lot of messy queer characters going on between the three of us.
Messy.
There are no perfect
messy
people in here. There's no perfect people. I love both of your books so much for just how messy everyone was. And It was just so beautiful to kind of watch them all stumble over each other. And so we have a lot to talk about in the ways we've all messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. That is a question I have putting a pin in for later.
Yes. All the questions. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Well, we just talked about what our books are all about. So it's the most cliche question in the book, but where did you come up with the premise of your book, or what inspired your book? I feel like it's still interesting to ask, even though it's the one we get asked a million times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing is, like, inspiration comes from a lot of places. So I think every time I ask this question, depending on what day it is or what I've been doing, I'm like, a different part of the creation story is told. So I think in this one with this crowd, since we're talking about being messy, let's talk about how like this started as like basically a mistake on my part. This book started as a mistake. Simply because I misunderstood the premise of Jenny Han's To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I was
Oh.
read it and
Oh.
watched it expecting a very different thing. I was like, oh, of course she's like in love with all of these like people at once, and she has like all these crushes at once. Wow, that's crazy. And then I actually saw the thing, and that wasn't what it was about at all. And the actual story was, of course, beautiful and wonderful. Thanks, Jenny Han, for the inspiration. Yeah, but I was just like, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. I'm like, what if you just like had really messy feelings for like a couple of people at once, and all those people were in your life? And what if you also had like the time deadline of like your little sister's quince, and then. And so that's kind of like where one the idea came from, at least at the start. And then I think I really wanted to write a story with a happy ending, with a queer character, especially a queer Chicana and teenager who's growing up in the Valley, which is kind of the Texas-Mexico border. And it's the area where I grew up, and I grew up reading YA contemporary. I grew up reading Sarah Dessen, all of those books, and I really enjoyed it. But I always felt a disconnect because all those characters didn't look like me and they didn't love like me. So I was kind of just always at a bit of a disconnect, like a self-inserting just enough to kind of get that escapism, but not feeling wholly satisfied. And this was the kind of story that I would have wanted to read. And so I like couldn't get out of my head. And so I wrote it, and now it is out. But I wanted to have a cute slice of life story set in the Valley, because it being on the border, there's a lot of like propaganda and mainstream news, especially right now, with like the governor and Elon Musk trying to like throw like a lot of shade onto the Valley and really just like spread all these rumors about how dangerous it is. And when you only focus on like one part of a community and you miss all the good parts and the mundanity and the laughter and the tears and the joy and the grief and all of the things that like make all the things that fill in the spaces in between big traumatic events or big happy events. And so I really wanted something just kind of floated everywhere that you could kind of like get lost in when everything feels sad. So I think that's really what started the premise of the book. I just wanted to have a lot of fun, and I wanted to participate in a quince.
I really love that origin, the misunderstanding to all the boys I loved before, because like I feel like that I understand your train of thought with that. Like as someone who's had crushes on multiple people at once, the way Maggie does, I'm like, yeah, this is why did any media is always like one person? It's like sometimes there's a lot of feelings for a lot of people at once.
Right. The furthest they'll go sometimes is the love triangle, and it's like I need more. I need to make it worse for me.
Yeah, exactly. I need to be really confused the entire time. And I think you both can probably attest to having like multiple crushes on multiple people at once, or like even just thinking you do, even if you do or you don't. Like confusing all those intense feelings that you have for friends for romantic, when sometimes like they're not romantic. Sometimes you just really love your friend, and that's like just as important as like whether or not you romantically love your friend, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And the question just, floats by. We're like, is this romantic? Is this platonic? What am I feeling? Like, it's not, just do a quick check-in with yourself sometimes.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Kat, exactly. I love a serious friendship. I think I love the uptick in like YA contemporaries that are about friendship, like friendship and friend love and like friend breakups, because some of my friend breakups have been the messiest and like most scarring of all.
Oh, they're the worst.
Yep.
No,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah. Friendships are amazing, especially they're a lot more, I think, accessible to everyone because at a young age, like you might not have had like a partner when you were in 5th grade, but you had a best friend that you really connected with. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was Rachel, do you have a question or?
Well, I had one, but you kind of answered it. You went into you covered it. You're good. Like, I guess if you have more thoughts about writing a book set in where you grow up in the Rio Grande Valley, like, obviously putting like fighting some of the propaganda that's out there, but growing up in a certain area or in a small town or in somewhere that has a sort of reputation, you tend to, I think, you want to show people the right details. You want to show people like the truth, the community that's out there. And I love being able to hear that about smaller places that I've never been to Texas. I've never been to the Rio Grande Valley. I love being able to open your book and see that and see like this beautiful, it comes alive. And I love it. That's it. That's the end. There's no question. I just like it.
I often, my partner, when we first started dating, was like, I'd never heard of the Valley until you told me. And then I started looking up and I realized like what a great place it was. And I'm like, it's amazing. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, as you can see from like the cover. That's actually what the sunset looks like. That's actually what the sky looks like every single day.
Yes.
And
it doesn't translate well on the video, but like the color scheme of this is
gorgeous.
It's delicious.
Gorgeous.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Chef's kiss. Shout out Zeke Benya. Thanks. Ooh, yeah, that spot glass though.
Ooh.
Thank you, production. Thank you, quality control. Whoever packed the boxes. I work in publishing.
Oh, there we go.
So I know.
Bling, bling, bling.
There we go.
The book. But what was the question?
I don't think there was a question.
There wasn't one. I was just saying I really liked how you wrote it.
I'll piggyback on the non-question. Just say it's like rare for YA contemporaries to have super rich, detailed setting. Like you don't have to do world building as much necessarily. So I do really like when you get a lot of world building for a real place, because a lot of times then it's like a fictitious town, which I understand. I set my book ambiguously in Northern California because I didn't want to deal with that. But I like that you really get a feel for the place and you get those types of world building details that oftentimes you don't get in realistic fiction as much.
Yeah. Like I really feel like I was able to kind of look at it at where I lived with like romanticism, and I've always been a romantic, as you can maybe like tell by the book.
No.
But you know, as like a snotty teenager, as a snotty emo kid, I was just like, I'm gonna get out of this town. This is too small. I'm gonna move to New York and like do my own thing. And I moved to New York and I'm like, dang, I miss my home. And yeah. And so I think taking it's its own character. And I think that it requires, writing about a real place kind of requires a little bit of humbling. In a sense, realizing that you're just one of the I'm just one of the like million people who live there. And so I only have like my one perspective. So I always try and rely on and like facts in a weird way, because I know like facts are not, there's nothing up for interpretation. Like when you look at the sky and see the colors, there's just like nothing of it. It's pink, orange, and yellow, and that's just a fact. And I think trying to report what I see as objectively as possible, in order to kind of tell my truth from like my view and the ways that like I in particular could see it, and making sure that I'm not saying like, oh, this is the portrait of the valley, this is like how it is, because it's just like my personal interpretation. I want, with this book more than anything, to kind of have it be just showing the people of the valley that they can tell their own stories, and that they can tell how it looks to them, and that it's possible for people to want to read what they have to say about the valley. And so I think that's something that was really important for me, to just make sure that I had not like this one tell-all view, but it was just like, here's what I see. What do you see?
It feels like the valley, or like the setting, is as much a character as like Maggie is. And it feels truthful. It really does.
Yeah, it's definitely, it feels like a character, because it thrives, it throbs, it's alive. The community has veins and blood, and like there's family and warmth, and it all kind of thrives on its own, and outside of just any one person's place, any one person's like place in it, they're all parts of the whole.
Well, it reminds me, and I'm gonna completely mess up the quote, where it's like the universals and the specific, or whatever it is, like that the story becomes more relatable because these feel like very real characters in a very real place. that's far more relatable than if you're just like, oh, there were just these kids and they were in a town, like that you don't connect with them if you don't get that specificity of like, this is one person's experience and one person's life allows you to connect with it more. And I think you did a really good job of showing that in like both the setting and also like her interpersonal relationships and stuff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our questions are just us complimenting you.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm a former like gifted kid burnout. I left
Oh no.
This is great. How I do my best work when I feel like everybody loves me.
Yeah. Please validate me.
Please validate me. But anyway, yeah, like I wanted to make the characters feel as real as possible because I've always had this fascination, this like inherent sadness over not being able to step into other people's skin and live their lives and see like how they view the world. And I think I spent a lot of time being really sad as a kid who read and wrote. I was just like, dang, I really am sad I only get to live this one life. I'm really sad that I only have like this one perspective. So I just wanted to write a billion perspectives that like I could just look through like little windows into like the collective unconscious. Oh man, it's that part of the evening. It's 10 p.m. Yeah. So I this is like making the characters as real as possible is my way of being able to step into people's skin in a way that's authentic. So I can see something about the world and I can learn something from the world that way.
Absolutely.
This is an excellent segue for my question.
We're killing it.
Beautiful when that happens. That I really love writing and reading books with big cast of characters, and both of you have, Rachel, your cast isn't as big, but you have 3 point of views, which is a lot to balance. But I love how big like Maggie's group of friends is, and that she has a family and like her sister's boyfriend, that there's all these people that get named and have like intentional specific personalities and traits and characteristics. So I'm always curious to hear what authors sort of process is with trying to balance that all out, because you also had to balance 3 different romantic arcs going on as well and make them all like compelling and entice the reader with it while still having like some slight favoritism for one and like one that you want us to ultimately root for, which I feel like is so much to be juggling in your brain. So like how do you sort of tackle all of those things? Those really long leading questions.
No, I love that. That was a great question. No, because I love this question because that's one of the things that people on Goodreads say that they hate is how many characters there are.
Oh, I'm scared. My next book deals with an entire soccer team, so I'm.
Is it gay? That sounds. Really
it is.
But like,
yes. Done.
The original. Okay. Yeah. It's then I have to kind of be reminded of. I think when I was growing up and like one of the things that was really important to me was having like really big cast of characters in this, because I found that one of the things I hated about reading YA contemporaries as a kid with predominantly straight, predominantly white characters is I was like, where are all your cousins? Where's your grandma? Where, like, what do you mean you only have like one aunt and she lives in like Ohio? Like, and you never see her. What do you do for Christmas or Thanksgiving? What does your house look like? And so whenever I would read those books, I would just get so lonely and sad and I would have to drop out. Yep. Oh, Kat, I love you and all of your 18 cousins. We need to all have dinner together.
So many cousins.
I know. Can you imagine that? It's going to be great. We're all going to have Thanksgiving. But anyway, yeah. So I think it was really important to me to have that real element because I feel like in my real life, as someone who also comes from a big family with a lot of extended people kind of running through it. And I think being, especially if you're Latinx, I think there's like a reputation of having really large families and having like a lot of people around, a lot of love, a lot of food, and a lot of really close relatives kind of popping in and out of your life and really complex stories. And I think that's something that was always really fascinating to me, even growing up in it, was how many lives and how many feelings for the people in your life and how many memories you hold of all of these people. And you have all of it swirling around in your head. Not only do you have like your parents' influence on you, you have your grandma's influence, you have your cousins, you have your tias, your tios, all of those perspectives and experiences are floating around in your head. So of course it like makes it even more complicated, just the sheer volume of voices. And I wanted to make sure that each person had their own kind of special, that every person felt alive and no one felt just like, oh, they're just here because they're dating so and so, and that's like it. And like they're just kind of around in the background smiling because like my cousins had a rotating cast of like boyfriends and girlfriends and people who were just coming in and out, and each one of them brought something special into my life, into my sister's life, and all of those lessons are just kind of combined. And I think I really love a big family. I love exploring just how the many different types of love there are, especially when there's not, when blood isn't just there, especially when with even just like found families, when I'm thinking about like big groups of queer people who all come together to kind of support each other. I think family in that sense is also super important, and just having a bunch of people on your side and like supporting you, because as like individualist as kind of a lot of media tends to be, being all about your personal journey or your personal growth, like you're not the only one who exists in your world, so you're also helping the people around you, affecting the people around you, and you're not only like your one romantic entanglement is not just affecting you, it's affecting the way you treat other people in your life. And that's like something you see Maggie go throughout the book, and is realizing she's been a really shitty sister and a really terrible friend, and because she's like busy trying to figure herself out. And like it's just something we have to balance, because you can't just say at the end of the day like, it doesn't matter, like my sisters, my parents my mom will understand, like I'm going through this terrible romantic time, everyone leave me alone. Because you can't. You have to like deal with how you affect other people. So it's interesting to kind of see how everyone is learning from Maggie and how Maggie learns from everyone, because everyone is like learning from people. None of these people are perfect, and they're all kind of just learning from each other. So yeah, that's I hope that
I like it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I feel like a hypocrite nodding along to your comments about like big cast when you grow up in a Latina family, because I'm on my Latina side, really big family. On my Irish side, really big family. Ophelia, my main character, has no extended family, so I'm a hypocrite for that one. But
I here for that. I was so here
okay.
I was just so sad about it, and I was like,
yeah, coming from an entirely English family, yeah, it's not. There's no big family. There's nothing.
You're invited to Thanksgiving,
and it's thank you. But it's lovely to read about. It's lovely to read like these huge extended families that all live like next door to each other and are super involved, and it's wonderful.
And like I'm like picking off of like what you said. I'm going to direct attention to your book, because speaking of big casts and big POVs, you like have 3 people like that you're constantly rotating in between. As I was reading it, I was like, how do you keep all of these details straight? And especially with how real they felt and how specific the families were and their stories, and how they had all these rich histories before we even come into the book, that it feels like it's like already a story we're being dropped into. And I loved that. But how did you manage writing 3 POVs?
Well, I tried to get away with writing less than 3, but realized very, very quickly that was not going to be possible. Because I think you're doing one of the 3 a disservice, and you don't get the whole story if you don't have all 3 of them, with how tightly their plots are woven together. It was a lot of like index cards, I'm gonna be honest. At first, like I had color-coded index cards that I wrote out each of their scenes on, and just sort of laid them all out on my office floor and like rearranged them until they didn't feel like it was a bunch of the same person's chapter after the other, and that everything sort of made sense. Figuring out POVs, and especially voices for 3 different characters is very challenging. It honestly helps to have had an acting background. It's what I went to school for. So I am used to having to kind of do the work of like, how does this person think? And like, specific word choice and things like that. Like Roz, who is very, very intelligent and very, wants people to know that she's intelligent, is going to use a lot more SAT words than Christian, who just wants to get along, Like,
our favorite himbo Christian.
I know, just golden retriever son. Like
he loves soccer and his friends, and that's all he knows.
And his dog.
And his little sister and his dog. God. Yeah. That was the biggest help, I think, was being able to really like, I had a playlist for every single one of them. And if I was writing their chapter, I would listen to just their playlist and I could not listen to anything else or I would get completely confused.
I love that. That's so important. Music is so important. But yeah, I was reading yours and I was struck by it. I loved how different they all were. I loved how none of them were perfect. I loved Roz. She was
far from perfect.
Far from perfect. Yeah, and so Raquel, a lot of in Ophelia, after all, a lot of the friend group steals the show a lot of the times. This mean, especially like at the end, like they just really are coming alive the entire time. Like Ophelia is just kind of hanging out with her roses.
Yeah,
and I really loved that. What was it like? Just like balancing the dynamic of having so many rich like friends as well, because I know Maggie has her friends, but like you have a lot of friends with their own very complex storylines that are playing out right in front of our eyes. So I was really, really happy with that. So what was it like?
Yeah, well, similarly, like I grew up and I grew up hanging out with like a pretty big group of friends, like in like middle school and high school. And it wasn't that I was like close with everyone. I wasn't like popular. It was just like I hung out with large groups of people. And so I wanted to emulate that in a story. And pretty early on, like my agent was someone who was like, I want to hear more about the side characters. And I was like, I can do that. Like I can like talk about like their lives and everything. And that I wanted to make it seem like we could jump into the point of view of any of Ophelia's friends and have there be like a story that we would understand is going on, like all of them having their own little narrative arcs in the background. Because
I want
kind of
spin-offs
like
of every single one of them. I want spin-offs.
I have friends who have begged me to write like novellas for them just about like some characters. Like
yes, please.
I may have to write
all, and it's just a group of vignettes.
Yeah, just all of them in college. Oh,
I love it.
But similar to what you were saying about like all of Maggie's friends and everyone in her life, that they're all going through these things at the exact same time that she's going through stuff and that what she's dealing with affects them. I wanted to show that with Ophelia's friends as well, that even at times when you're like frustrated with why are the characters acting like this or Ophelia's acting like this, they're all the main character of their story. They all are going through something and thinking like, I'm acting in a rational way. Like I'm upset with my friends because they've either betrayed me or lied to me or keeping something from me. But like we as a reader know more information, so it's easy for us to like judge them. And so I wanted to give a lot more context and background to them to show like, yeah, they're all just a bunch of messy kids and like trying to figure out what's going on in their lives and trying to figure out what they're going to do as they're on the precipice of adulthood. So it did feel really important to me to give each of them like their own particular sort of narrative arc and journey. Zach is sort of just like hanging out in the background, like having a good time, but like
he's just vibing. He's just
he like doesn't know what's happening. Like all of these characters, everyone's having like identity crises and like love triangles, and he's like, cool, I have more friends. Like this is sick.
He's painting and eating chips. Like what? Huh?
Yeah. But yeah, that's like part of why I really loved reading your book, because I was like, oh my god, cool, we got like another big cast. And Rachel, your book about 3 point of views that people don't like that very much. And I'm like, dude, I love when you get to have a bunch of characters that all feel fleshed out and real. I don't like characters that feel like they're just a cardboard cutout in the background of the main character's story. And I feel like you both did a really good job of balancing that.
Proud of all of us. Look at us. This conversation.
Yeah, look at us.
Look at us.
They're back and forth.
Look at us.
Who'd have thought it?
Not me. A slight pivot, but I really want to ask this, or just remark on it, I guess. A theme that I've noticed in all 3 of our books is like the idea that you don't have to have it figured out yet. I find it very interesting that we all kind of gravitated toward that specific experience of not having it figured out. And like, is that like, it's more universal than we think, I think. Is that like pulled from personal or?
Yeah, I'll start off and then Raquel, you can take it over. But I feel like with JYLBD is very much like I wanted to set out to tell that story of like not everyone has to have it figured out, but specifically I think because I think we see a lot with queer characters that they get kind of judged harsher based on like the mistakes they make. Because where in some reviews a like white straight character might make some mistakes and have the reviewer say, well, they're growing up, they're a teenager, like of course this like moving messy portrayal, but then you have kind of like a queer non-white character do something very similar and then they're like, this doesn't cast the character in a positive light. They're kind of held and that is a quote from a review of JYLD.
Yeah.
Like that's the point. It's not called Just Your Local Bisexual Angel. It's called Just Your Local Disaster. Like, see, Maggie really is just a jerk sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's okay because like I was a jerk as a teenager, and I'm sure y'all were too. You seem like lovely people now, but I mean, let's be real, who among us? And I think that was something that nobody ever told me growing up, that it was okay to be like messy and like flawed. And especially like being a Chicana and like being bisexual, like I always felt like I had to walk a very fine line because suddenly especially in moving to kind of the East Coast, going to like a college, a predominantly like white college where I went, you are being watched a lot more heavily and judged a lot more heavily, and you walk that little tightrope trying to be like one of the good ones and trying to act like and wanting to kind of like assimilate before realizing eventually that you never will, and that's okay and it's pretty great actually. And I think it's something that we have to go through, knowing that it's okay not to belong in certain spaces or not to be accepted by certain people, and to go off and find the people who do accept us for being who we are, and whether that's like messy, whether that's organized, not organized, that's a perfectionist or not. I think I really just wanted to set out and tell a story where character just gets to really mess up and have a safe space to kind of like just explore that. I wanted to see what it was like to have a teenager with a supportive like network of people making a mistake and learning from it and being able to grow without there being like this through line that exists in some like queer narratives with trauma and like kids getting kicked out or beat up or anything, and like all of that trauma and pain. I wanted to not have that. I wanted to give a character like a comfortable space to mess up, because I think all of us deserved a comfortable space to mess up, and we didn't get that. R.I.P. our younger selves.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Oh, my voice. When I started writing Ophelia, after all, I was 19, so I was still a teenager, and I was in the middle of like my queer identity crisis sort of stuff and figuring out things. So I think it was important for me to write a book about a character who didn't have it all figured out during that time, where I even more so felt like, oh, now I'm like an adult, like I need to like have it all figured out and have the answers. Because I think especially nowadays with the way that like colleges are set up and like essays and careers and stuff, like you are expected to figure out what you're going to do with your life at like the ripe age of 17. It's like, all right, locked and loaded. You have to have been planning for this. You have to know what you're going to do. If you don't, you're going to waste the next years of your life. Like there's so much pressure to have this precise answer figured out.
And if that thing doesn't work out, what now? You know, it has to be this or nothing. And so I wanted to write about a character that felt like she had like all of the answers about herself, and then to have something sort of shift, everything sort of tumbles out of place. And she's like, oh, wait, I may not actually know everything about who I am and who I'm going to be. And like, maybe that is okay. Because a lot of kids, I think, need to hear that, like that even if you have a really strong sense of self, you're going to grow and change as a human being, and it's okay for that to happen. And that's one of my favorite things about writing YA, and we keep talking about writing like messy characters, is that like I'm forgiving my characters before I've even finished having them make the mistake that I'm making them make. Like I think it's really important for kids to have that space, and it makes me more forgiving toward myself, because I'm like, I'm making you do some pretty shitty things right now, but like I understand that it's coming from a place of pain or confusion or frustration, and we're gonna work it out. But like I understand. And so it did feel important to write
characters that get to have that. And like you were saying with Maggie and with her friends, like having that sort of safe space to mess up, and like that it's okay for you not to have it figured out, it's okay for you to mess up, like this is just a part of life and you don't have to be perfect. Because queer characters get held to like a different standard. And I really liked that Maggie at times when she's like frustrated with this sort of love triangle dilemma she's in, she's like, oh, am I actually like the bisexual stereotype, whatever? Because it's like, if that was a straight character who was just like some boy who's torn between three girls, people would be like, oh, this is just a love triangle, advanced, like that no one questions it. But if it's a queer character, suddenly it's like, this is harmful representation, this is bad, this is supporting stereotypes. And it's like, okay, but actual people go through those things. Like a person attracted to multiple genders may be attracted to multiple people at once, and that's fine. Like that's a human experience. That's absolutely okay for them to experience that. And I, for one, very much supported her. I was like, you get to have your messy time. You get to be a disaster. Like you earned this just as much as any other person earned this.
Yep, exactly. Like I'm like, you get to do this. You get to mess up and like figure it out, and you get to not have this like idea over your head that like, oh yeah, not only do you have to feel bad about like messing up, you have to feel bad because of what it means like for you, like, and society as a whole, and
now you're single-handedly responsible for people's bigotry.
Single-handedly responsible for biphobia, and it's over. I mean, like I feel like queer people just don't get to make the same kinds of mistakes without being like even more heavily judged. I mean, who among us? I've both cheated and been cheated on. So does that make me the bisexual stereotype of being a cheater? And like, I get to make mistakes too, just like everyone else. Like we get to make mistakes without being called like stereotypes. Dang, let me mess up without it being a whole like a whole thing. Bisexuality.
It doesn't need to be like a statement about every single person that shares a specific facet of your identity. It can just be that you're a human being that has made a mistake.
People need to know that they can mess up.
Yes, exactly.
And that it's okay. Is it okay if I ask a little follow-up question?
No.
Because, all right, carry on. I mean, you're allowed to mess up. It's okay. I mean, Raquel, you kind of already said it. I mean, you talked about writing OPHELIA After All when you were 19, and still trying to figure yourself out. I would be interested to know as well, Andrea, like you don't have to have things figured out about yourself at any point in life, but did writing JYLBD help you figure anything out about yourself, like whether it was sexuality or like more, personal identity, if you're comfortable sharing?
Of course. There's like, I'm an open book. If I don't want to answer a question, I'll tell you I don't want to answer a question.
Sure.
But so I love this question because I learned so much. Like I felt like I learned this Maggie's lesson along with her, like being this, like, I think at the time I wrote it, it was like 23. I was 23. So I was like I was past that age of being able to like make those mistakes and claim like I'm a teenager.
I'm currently like 23, so I understand.
Just like, oh, I'm an adult now. I'm supposed to have this all together. And that's where like this came from. I had just like graduated like college. I got my first adult job when I first started writing JYLBD because I missed having the excuse of being a teenager to mess up. All of a sudden there's like pressure, and everything that you go through as like an adult from your early 20s onwards has like higher stakes. Like you're not only thinking about like, who am I going to date for the moment? Like, who am I going to want to go forward into my life with, whether that's friends, family, partners, romantic partners. You're making those decisions about what you want to spend the rest of your life doing. And it's really scary, and I'm still scared. And I'm like 26, still learning these same lessons that Maggie's learning. And I think, so it was very humbling to write it. While I was writing it, I learned a lot about my own internalized biphobia and how I view the relationships like in my own life and in my past, and the ways that my shame about certain parts of my identity would play into my relationships, and the ways that I would harm people, and how the things that I wasn't dealing with myself and I hadn't dealt with were still affecting like who I was. And through it all, as I was kind of as I was writing, kind of questioning this, I was also just getting very angry about why I had to confront all of this now, and I couldn't confront it as a teenager when I was supposed to be making these mistakes and like figuring out who I was. And it was because as a young person, like who was closeted, I wasn't able to like date. I wasn't able to dress the way I wanted, date how I wanted, like spend time doing the things I wanted. And I was like so deeply in the closet and so afraid of repercussions of coming out that I wasn't able to deal with like that internalized shame and those internalized feelings because I was so busy trying to survive. And I don't blame like my younger self for needing to conserve her energy fighting the outside forces that were threatening like, her existence or her survival. I couldn't exactly sit around being like, damn, am I a cliche? When really I was sitting around being like, am I gonna die because I'm bi? Am I gonna get murdered? Is like my family gonna hate me? So I didn't have the safe space to kind of really work on myself and like work on my personal development because I was busy working on like battling against these like external forces. So what I wanted from Maggie was I wanted to know how would I have made these choices had I had a safe place to go through these issues. In the same way that you see straight teens in straight media going through and like nobody's questioning their journey or nobody's questioning their worth as a person as they go through this. And I wanted her to have that like space to deal with those internal issues and how she feels about herself when she doesn't have to battle against external biphobia and danger and fear and being afraid of violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's yeah.
I love the free therapy of writing books.
Yes.
You get to work through problems and give them to like teenagers and like, all right, let's have you deal with it.
My disasters write books instead of going to therapy.
Yeah.
Or we can doing both.
No, that was a joke. I love my therapist.
No, I know. I
read
your acknowledgements. I pay attention.
Yeah. I wrote 3 different characters and gave them 3 different problems, and I was like, okay, solve them.
Covering all the bases.
Yeah.
Do we want to pull from audience questions?
I think so.
Okay.
See how to do that. Ooh.
Questions.
Okay. I'm looking at these.
Okay.
I'm just curious about this. So can I click it? I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
Oh, we can just ask it, I think.
Oh, I think they'll delete it from the. Yeah. Okay.
So this is from Kat. Where did I put it? Did it go at the top?
Yes, it did.
Andrea, did you have a quince? Not sure how I don't know this.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I did not have a quince, which every time I say this, I'm just like, I'm like, is someone going to call me out for being fake? But JYOBD was like my wishful thinking, was my like way of living through the dream of having a quince. I did not have one. And what I did have instead was like a 15th birthday dinner party at a barbecue restaurant. And because like quinces are the kind of things where they make it really obvious that you don't have any friends if you try and have one without friends.
Yeah.
Like, I was like a weird, awkward, like bookish little kid, and I like didn't have many friends, and I didn't really like talking to people, and I didn't feel comfortable in dresses at the time. Now I'm like, I want to wear a ball gown every single day, and I work from home, and I would love to wear a tiara. But back then I was in that phase of like a teenager, and we were like, nobody look at me, or I'll Kermit Soup-side. Like,
no.
Exactly. So I was just like, I didn't want the attention. I didn't want anything, but it's in my blood. So my parents were just like, well, we have to do something. Like, what do you want to do? And I was just like, I don't know, dinner. And then they're like, all right, well, got you.
Yeah.
We'll do a dinner party. So they did a dinner
Aw.
party at this barbecue restaurant. Yeah, oh, cute. Wait
That's
until you
so
see the
cute.
pictures.
Oh.
Yep. I was 15 and there was a barbecue restaurant that had like longhorns in like the behind the restaurant, like where all these like there's like a wall of windows so you could see the cows lingering.
Living cows?
Like living cows, like yeah, like real like longhorns. You just be eating your brisket
Living for now.
and it's like, why did you eat my dad?
That's like a more advanced version of like the lobster tank at like a seafood restaurant.
I don't feel good about that.
I feel terrible about it. But you know who took a picture with those cows in a denim jacket, boots, and a hat? This girl. I took a picture with a tractor. Like this is like in
It was your quinceañera. Like this is your
This is your quinceañera. This is your
quinceañera. You were allowed to take a picture with the live animals.
Yeah, and I like so instead of the big like 3 feet tall quince picture where you look real cute like a little doll with the tiara, I had a 3 foot tall picture of me in a cowboy hat and boots posing next to a tractor.
It's unique. It's a better story.
It's unique, and I hid it behind the piano so my mom can't find it. And every time I brought someone new to the house that I was hoping would date me and think I'm cool, she would bring out this big picture and be like,
just get it out of the way, right?
Get it out of the way. And I'm like, well, now you know who I am and where I'm from. And where I'm from is social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And not having
that is an incredible tale, though.
That's great.
It's good lore. It's good character lore.
Yeah. I would quince, and I regret all the years of my life that I spent not feeling like I was pretty because I'm just like, that would have been great.
What a waste. Yeah, I know. I feel that way too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm going to jump around a little bit. This is from Kaden. What is your favorite part about writing a messy character? And do you find messy characters more freeing to write or more difficult?
Ooh. Wow. I love a messy character because I feel like everyone's really a little messy in a lot of ways and they just don't want you to see it. So there's something very freeing about being able to write a character who's outwardly messy and like unapologetic about it. There's something very freeing in kind of getting to write the little details that make someone look messy. Whether that's like, oh, you have a hole in your jeans or your shoelaces are untied or that kind of thing, or you forgot your homework and kind of a thing, or you're like 15 minutes late for whatever. There's kind of there's a lot of opportunities for comedy, a lot of opportunities for growth when you write a messy character, like outright. But there's something really nice about getting to pick apart a perfect character. So I love writing both like really messy and perfect characters. And somebody asked at an event what a companion piece to JYLBD would look like. And I always say I would write from Amanda's perspective because I want to pick her apart. I want to pick apart this like perfect golden girl, like whole thing. And I want to pick it apart and take it like, and just see what's like on the inside of her once you get past that like hard exterior. And there's something really, really great about just being able to go watch someone take themselves apart and put them back together.
Ooh.
In my experience, the characters who most need to be messy are the ones who aren't, who are trying very hard not to be. They're the ones that really cathartic. They need the catharsis. They need to really, really get in the dirt.
I was going to say, you wrote messy characters, but one of your messy characters is like the perfect golden girl as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was one question I had seen before. Kat asked, what queer books, TV, movies are you loving lately? Which I always just think is fun.
Ooh, I love that one. I will talk forever about Crush on Hulu.
I still need to watch it.
No, 100%. You have to watch it. I could write for hours on this. I cry every time I watch it, but I've like seen it twice at this point. But it's on Hulu, and it's about a girl who has a crush on a girl and ends up being on the track team to try and like get closer to her, and also to find out who's like framing her for like this art graffiti project that's happening at school, and it's like starring Rowan Blanchard, who's I think bi, and then the love interest is the girl who voiced Moana. So
Ali E. Carvalho.
yeah, exactly. And so that was really cute. And they have all of these like somebody on like them called it a queer utopia of a movie, because it's like there's no like queer phobia, like there's no like there's plenty of, it's not the kind of thing where the main character doesn't have any other queer people in her life or any other queer people to because there's queer people all over this place, and she just hasn't had her first kiss yet. And so it's very cute to just like watch her fall in love and go through all of these like really messy moments that you see, very classic like moments of trying to trip all over yourself for a girl. And they have all those cute like queer references. They like, she wears like girl in red, and like her mom's trying to give her like paraphernalia. Her mom's like really sex positive, so she's like almost overly supportive. And like her biggest flaw is that she's like super embarrassing because of how supportive she is. And you have her like token straight best friend, and like she doesn't have like a gay best friend, she has a straight best friend, and it's just like a very cute like whole thing. So that's one. Two, I say this all the time, that the Fear Street series on Netflix, if you are
I need to watch that.
Yeah, I do too.
If you are like a spooky person, if you're a horror person, if you love the books, yep, it's queer. It's just like you just get to like get that feeling of like saving your girlfriend from like demonic possession. And the Fear Street movies are really cute, but the soundtrack's great. There's like 12 licensed songs in the first like 5 minutes of the movie that are like referenced. Soundtrack's great. It's low-key like the inspiration for like book 2, if anyone is interested in that. So I'm
okay.
I was gonna ask about other books. I know we have questions in here, but I kind of wanted to ask about if you have other projects in the work.
Yeah. Well, I can't officially like say anything. I can't officially say anything, but I am working on. I do have something on sub. It's quite a turn from JYLBD. It's YA murder mystery. And it's of course messy. It's queer. We have a messy, angry bi protagonist and an exes to lovers like storyline, an exes to lovers storyline. There's a lot of flirting over like dead bodies in the morgue. There's like daisies and like girls of color in STEM. And
want.
Yes. And no offense, but the soundtrack was really great. If you see me on Spotify, Andrea Mosqueda, my profile picture is of Jennifer's Body, is a screen cap from Jennifer's Body. If you go, JYLBD's playlist is on there, and the next project. But so that's kind of like, it's a little bit of a departure, but I always tell people, and every time somebody asks, that my inner child wrote JYLBD because she wanted a happy ending, and she wanted a quince, and she wanted glitter and sunsets and like sugar and all of those sweet things. But in the process of writing it, my inner teen realized how angry she was, and she wants the reins for book 2. So inner child is satisfied and is like, here you go, you can take that. And so now there's like blood and like eyeliner and rock and roll and anger and like bloody knuckles and just a whole like photo shoot aesthetic, Tumblr aesthetic in 2014 kind of thing going on.
Incredible.
I'm so in.
I've been teasing it on social media before I even know it's actually going to exist. So I hope that your interest means that one day it will exist.
It better.
Yeah. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight if it doesn't.
Fight well and friends.
Just like friends.
Please.
Come on, the call's coming from inside the house. Like,
yeah, come on.
Stop. 100%. Anyway. All right. Any questions? I can't see them.
Oh, we can still see them.
Oh. Yeah.
Rachel, do you want to ask
that
one?
Oh, we probably have time for like one more.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I think we've kind of asked the one about inspirations. We've kind of already figured that one out. I guess between Which one? I'm having trouble seeing.
Oh, no. You choose. You choose.
Well, I think we have one from a family member. Who would you like to play your main character if your book became a movie?
My main character. I have been saying this, and I need to actually write her name. I would want the girl from the Runaways, the Hulu, the Marvel series, the little sister who wears the hat. I forgot. Allegra Acosta. I would want her to play Maggie, and somebody for season chat or something. But she's kind of like just this like feisty like Latina heroine in the Runaways, and she's got this like really great way of kind of looking a little bit awkward. The one with the sister of the one with the dinosaur. So it's like not Gertie, but the other one.
She wears like the pink hat.
She wears a little hat, yeah, and she has the powers.
Yes.
Oh, I see her.
I googled it. Yes,
yeah.
I like that. That's a good pick.
Google is our friend.
I have no idea how well this is going to show up on
think it
camera for
works.
other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Is that?
that's not that
we're
great.
professionals. We're professionals. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Exactly. I like her because she looks like an actual like a high schooler. I find that when people cast
Yes.
they cast like 24-year-olds to play high schoolers. I'm like,
It's weird.
I don't like
It's weird.
that.
It's weird.
I don't like that at all. Yeah, so definitely her. And then I would want because of how picky I am, I want Sofia Alvarez, who did To All the Boys I Loved Before, and Sarah Dessen's Along for the Ride, like her Netflix adaptation. Yeah, very good. It's my favorite Sarah Dessen book, and I approve. And I'm very picky, so everyone should go watch that. But yeah, she did the writing and the directing on that too, and I loved the way that adaptation turned out. So that's nobody asked, but that's like my writer director pick.
You've got the whole thing planned out.
Yeah,
I really do. I do have a whole like fan cast list. I'm just blanking on everyone right now. So
it would have a killer soundtrack for sure.
yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
My Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
I am such I'm a very auditory person. I love music, and I'm sure like you both have relationships with music too. And I feel like it really helps me like ground a space and get into a certain headspace. So I'm like, that soundtrack is just like all kinds of, for JYOBD would just be all kinds of like music kind of mishmashed into one. And of course you have Maggie and her emo music, and then you have Amanda and her like love of like pop, and then you have people like Matthew who listens to straight man tears. But I've been finding that a lot of people who have been talking about JYLBD have great music taste. Everyone's great. They've been like putting Lizzo in a lot of content, and I've just been really, really happy that everyone picked up on that.
Yes, love it.
All right.
Love it.
Hey.
Hello.
I am so sorry to jump in. We are at the time, but you all did a great job just discussing. I thought just how natural you all are doing this. And this is the first time you've all done an event together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We did 3 before this. We just didn't want to tell you. We're hustling.
Oh, shoot.
We've been rehearsing for days.
Yeah, the whole thing was actually scripted.
Yeah,
I have a teleprompter over here.
Yeah. This is
Okay,
publicity.
we're blowing the internet's mind now.
With, POV from all of us.
Uh-huh.
Well, congratulations again, Andrea. This is wonderful. I really appreciate also you, Raquel, and Rachel being here for this. Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
shoot.
I have the other one.
We are together.
I feel bad. But everyone out there, you all can get all of their books. Again, if you haven't already, go on our website, click the link below, head to our website, and then you can grab them all. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
All right, with that, I'm going to wish everyone a great night. Hope to see you at our next virtual event. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Congrats.
coming.
Congrats.